From the Joker's true origin to the Hulk's incredible rampage, we've covered some messed up moments in comics that have made us go,
"Hey yo, what the fuck?"
And today is no exception, as this is Messed Up Moments in Comics Volume 5. We'll be covering parts 51 to 60 in today's video. If you'd like to see parts 1 to 50, I'll link a video now that I made, which is a giant-size compilation. With that being said, smash like on the video, hit subscribe, and let's get into this. Part 51. This is Kara Zor-El, or as you might know her, Supergirl. And she needs to stay far, far away from Hal Jordan. Because in 2007, we got The Brave and the Bold issue number 2, and we got this page. Now, at first, it seems pretty innocuous. Nothing too out of the ordinary here, just two superheroes flying through space. That is until you look a little closer. She tries to open up to Hal and get a little bit closer to him, build a little more of a connection, and be more personable. And that's when Hal says this. You have food in the refrigerator older than her. No bad thoughts. She's 17. Then she puts her arm around him and says, what do you like to do for fun when the mask comes off? Realistically, she's probably just asking if he has any time to cut loose. But he again reminds himself, she's 17. Honestly makes me think, in brightest day, in blackest night, no evil shall escape his sight. Part 52. This is Power Girl, otherwise known as Supergirl from Earth 2, Kara Zor-El. Though similar to Earth 1, she's a little older, but that's besides the point. And this is the story of the time that she inexplicably had a child. Let's get into it. This all takes place during 1994's Zero Hour, which, if you don't know, was the second time DC tried to consolidate their universes. They also tried to use this comic to kill off Wally West, but that's a story for another time. In the comic, we see a pregnant Power Girl interacting with her Earth 1 counterpart. And you can see during all the commotion, she goes into labor. And her unborn child is able to protect her with a force field. That must be important, right? While the multiverse is collapsing, Wonder Woman helps deliver the baby. And at the end of the day, you can see Power Girl standing there with her newborn child. So you might be asking yourself, Alex, what's the messed up part? It's quite simple, actually. They never mention the child again, the child has no father, and there's no explanation as to what happened. Part 53. This is the Governor from The Walking Dead, and he honestly might be one of the most messed up characters in comics. You might be thinking to yourself, what has he done that's so bad? Let me explain. Well, for starters, he cuts off the hand of Rick, the main character from the comic. Okay, dismemberment. Nothing new. Couldn't be that bad, right? There's also the fact that he assaults Michonne. And while he does, he makes sure that Glenn's in the cell next to them, hearing everything. And yes, you heard that right, I'm talking about the same katana-wielding Michonne that we all know. But by far the most messed up thing that this character has done is rip out the teeth of his zombie daughter before making out with her, then vomiting, saying he's going to need to get used to the taste. Who hurt you, Robert Kirkman? Who hurt you? Part 54. This is the Batman Who Laughs, a twisted version of Bruce Wayne, and this is the story of his defeat of the Justice League. In this comic, Superman responds to a call from Batman, saying he needs his help on the Watchtower. But things aren't right, because when Superman gets there, basically the entire Justice League is gone. Clark can also barely breathe, and starts bleeding from the eyes, as it turns out the air has been tainted with kryptonite. Things take an even darker turn when it turns out that Lois and their son, Jonathan, were both there. As you can see, the kryptonite is also affecting their son. And this is where the Batman Who Laughs pulls out all the stops, because you can see he brings black kryptonite, which turns Kryptonians into homicidal rage monsters. And you can see here, Batman says he tested this on Superman's cousin, Supergirl, Kara Zor-El, where she ripped her family apart. After saying this, Bruce casually throws the black kryptonite at the boys, causing them to take out Lois. This is why Batman is the most dangerous hero. Messed up moments in comics that made us go,
"Hey yo, what the fuck?"
Part 55. In Invincible issue 110, we witness the interaction between Mark and Anissa. This has been one of my most requested episodes from you guys, and I understand why. Earlier in the issue, we learn that Mark's wife has left him, which obviously is devastating, but it gets even worse. Anissa starts coming to blows after she says that they are tasked to rebuild their empire. In typical Robert Kirkman fashion, the fight is brutal. But it's what happens during the fight that's the messed up part. Because as this is going on, she starts to assault him. And he says he doesn't want it and to leave her alone. She then removes his clothing and I really can't say the rest on YouTube. But after the assault is finished, she tells him to man up. And he sits there on the verge of tears. Why, Robert Kirkman? Why? Messed up moments in comics that made us go,
What the f is that?
Part 56. We're all familiar with Supergirl, but her love life can't be that messed up. Or can it? Because you see, friends, the 60s were a wild time, and in this issue, we're going to be going over the time she fell in love with a horse. Yes, you heard that right. But let me explain. This is Comet the Super Horse, but he wasn't always this way. In fact, he actually used to be a centaur. And after saving a sorceress, she made a potion to turn him into a human, but also wanted to turn him into a horse, and she mixed them up. Supergirl ended up having dreams of this horse, and eventually they ended up meeting each other. Hilariously, he also has the powers of telepathy and immortality. And they share a connection because they had a psychic link when he was trapped on a comet and she was flying to Earth in her space pod. Whenever a comet flies over Earth, he changes back into a human. And that's when the two of them form a relationship. But it gets worse. He doesn't only just form a relationship with Supergirl. At one point, this horse also hooks up with Lois Lane, and eventually becomes an angel. Messed up moments in comics that made us go,
What the f?
Part 57. Yesterday, in honor of the holidays, I covered all the times that Spider-Man had something good happen in his life. However, if Spider-Man fans are happy, the writers decide
they've had it too good for too long.
So in today's video, we're going to be going over all of the terrible things that have happened to our boy Peter Parker. For starters, Aunt May is secretly his mom. And yes, I know I said Aunt May. She ends up getting with Uncle Ben later down the road, but had the baby with Richard Parker. As a child, he was assaulted by a full-grown man. He's chronically bullied through school. He's technically responsible for his girlfriend losing her life. The same girlfriend who, in a retcon story, hooked up with Norman Osborn before she perished. When body-swapped Wolverine tried to hook up with his girlfriend. The same girlfriend who leaves him for another guy in a different dimension, who also made a deal with the devil to get rid of their marriage, all after miscarrying her and Peter's baby, all before Doc Ock swaps bodies with him and he passes away. Honestly, no one hates Spider-Man more than the writers. Messed up moments in comics that made us go,
What the f is that?
Part 58. This is Batman, The Widening Gyre, written by Kevin Smith. Yes, you heard me right. Silent Bob himself. Kevin Smith writing the comic book was not the problem. However, it's what happens in the story itself. You might be thinking, there's been some really messed up stuff in DC Comics before. This couldn't be that bad, right? Let's do a little digging and find out exactly why this story is so controversial to fans. We get this panel here, which is a beautiful representation of Batman's first night on the job, illustrated by Walt Flanagan from Comic Book Men. Or as you may know him, the guy who says "Tell him Steve Dave" on all of the View Askew movies. However, the real problem is the panel below this. Because as you can see here, Batman said that he wet his pants from a bladder spasm on his first night on the prowl.
What the f?
He is vengeance. He is the night. He needs new pants. Part 59. This is Lex Luthor, one of the most iconic villains from Superman's Rogues Gallery. But did you know he had a sister? And he did arguably one of the most messed up things to her. Let's talk about it. This is Lena Luthor, but you might recognize her from her appearance on the CW show Supergirl. But in the comics, in this particular issue, she was wheelchair bound. And Lex Luthor and Superboy teamed up to help cure her. As you can see here, Lex Luthor injects her with a cure, which causes her to be able to stand once again. You can even see tears streaming down her face. You might be thinking, where's the messed up part? Lex immediately injects her with a reversing agent, which causes her to fall back into the wheelchair in a near vegetative state. After which Superboy throws the man and smashes him into a wall, stating that Lex giveth and taketh away. He just wanted to prove that he could cure her if he wanted. Part 60. This is Roy Harper, otherwise known as Speedy. You may recognize him from Teen Titans, or possibly Young Justice. And in today's episode, we're going to go over his battle with addiction. This story is called Snowbirds Don't Fly, written by Denny O'Neil and drawn by Neil Adams. This part of the story has Green Arrow, Oliver Queen, finding Roy using illicit substances. Justifiably angry, Ollie slaps him like he owed him 3 months' rent. And after some verbal sparring, Roy leaves. Hal Jordan comes in and helps take Roy to Black Canary's house, where he starts suffering some pretty violent side effects. As that's going on, one of Roy's friends breaks into his house now that it's empty, ODs, and passes away. And at that friend's funeral, Ollie and Roy reconnect, where Roy straight up punches him in the face. And at that moment, Roy decides that he's done with Ollie and leaves for good, going out on his own, leaving Green Arrow solo. Thank you so much for watching. New shorts released daily, sometimes twice a day. If you enjoyed this video, go ahead and leave a like and subscribe for more. And if you'd like to support the channel, consider becoming a member. If you'd like to see more, go ahead and click here or here. Thank you so much for watching. As always, I hope you have a great day, and I'll catch you in the next one.